Okay, so we have the elements we need for our navbar. Now we need to actually style them so they match our PSD file. So firstly we can see here that the background is transparent. So we actually need to set that in our style sheet. So the class we need to access is the navbar-default. This is what is currently styling our navbar, which is the default within the BootStrap CSS files. So if we head back to our style sheet, now the first thing we can do here is set our comments. So we can easily keep track of our styles. So to do this in our style sheet, we basically add a /, then a star, then we add in our comment, then we close it off with another star, then a /. This just helps us later if we need to come back and find any part of the code that we need to change. So as we saw in the index page, we need to add the .navbar-default into our style sheet, and then we add the property background color, and we can give this a value of transparent. Now navbars also have borders applied, so we can actually add the property border-color and give that a value of transparent as well. This will just make sure that all the elements of the navbar are actually transparent. So if we save that off and refresh our page, we can see that the background has gone, but we can't really see much of what's going on. So if I just head back to the style sheet and change the background color to black with the hex code of 000, that will just give us an idea of what's going on, and we can come back and change it to transparent later on when we actually need to. Now next you can see that the font on the PSD is actually different to what we have here. So we're going to have to install some new fonts to get this changed on our page. So to do that we need to head to google.com/fonts. Now this has a large collection of fonts that you can use on your websites or landing pages. You can have a browse through and look at all the different ones available and use whichever one you like. However, the font that we will use on our page is called Significant Negative. So if we just search for that in the search bar, we can see it's this one here. So if we just click on this quick link button, this will just give us some examples of how the font can be used, but more importantly the code that we need to get it onto our site. So we first need to copy this section of code here, and we need to paste this into the head section of our index page. So we can actually add it under our stars that we have here. As this is also a style sheet, we just simply place it underneath. That'll just keep them all in one place. Now if we head back to Google Fonts again, we can see another bit of code down the bottom here. This is what we need to use in our style sheet, so we can simply copy that. Now before we paste this in, we just need to make sure we're adding this to our navbar elements. So the class we need to access is navbar-nav. We need to add this into our style sheet. And then when that's in, we can simply paste the code in that we got from Google Fonts. So if we just save that off and refresh, we can see that the new font has actually been applied to our page. So you can see it's really simple to add Google Fonts, and again you can add whichever font you like in here. It doesn't have to be that one, just so it gives you an idea of how they work and what they look like on the page. Now if we go back and look at our PSD file again, we can actually see there is a margin around the navigation elements. So we can actually add this into our navbar class as well. So what we need to do is add the margin property, and we can give this a number of values here. So we start at the top of the item, and then we work our way clockwise around. So the first number is 35 pixels for the top, then the right is 100 pixels, the bottom will be 0. Now we actually need 0 pixels for the left as well, so we could actually stop at our positive value, but we want to make sure that our bottom has a value of 0, so that's why we add the last one in. So if we just save that off and refresh the page, we can see our navigation text has shifted down to the right by the amount of pixels that we just gave it in the style sheet. Now you can obviously feel free to have a play around with the numbers so you can get used to how it works and see how it works, and obviously if you don't think those values are right, then feel free to have a play around with it. Now next we need to change our font colour to our navigations. It's currently white in our design, but it's a grey colour on our page. So to access our links in the style sheet, we first need to access our navbar-default class again. Then we access our navbar-nav class, and then we hit our list tag, and then finally our A tag. So let's add that into our style sheet. So first it's in navbar-default, then the navbar-nav, then our li tag for list, and then our A tag. Then we add our curly brackets. So the first property we need is colour. Then we give that a hex value of white, which is FFF. And then if we just save that off and refresh, we can see that our colour has actually changed to white. However, you'll notice that when we hover over our links, it's actually a dark grey and not the green colour that we need. So if we head over to our PSD file, we can see that the active state is actually the green colour. So in order to access this, we add the same class as before. However, this time we need to add the hover state to the A tag. Now we need to go to our PSD again to get the actual colour. So we select the colour picker from over here. And then the green colour is actually the same as this button here. So we just need to select that, and that will give us our green colour. So we just need to copy this value. Then we head back to our style sheet and paste the value in after our colour property. Then if we just save that and refresh, then just hover over our link, we can see that the state has changed and the colour is now the green, which matches our navigation. Now you notice our logo is slightly higher up than it should be, so we actually need to add a margin around this. So we can access the logo image via the logo class that we added into our navbar. So in our style sheet we just need to add the logo class, then the image tag, which is img. Then we add the margin property. This time we still have the 15 pixels at the top, but we have 0 on the right, and then 0 on the bottom, but this time we have 100 pixels on the left. Then if we just save that and refresh our page, we can actually see it shift into place. Now our navbar is looking good already on the large screens. Obviously we'll add our transparent background in later. But if we just shrink the page down, we can see a slight issue with the logo positioning and the navigation positioning. Now we only want to adjust these values in these smaller devices, so we can actually do this with our max width media queries that we talked about earlier. So if we go back to our style sheet, we can add in our comment just to keep our media queries separate. Then we add in our media property and value, so it's max width. So these styles only affect anything under the value of our value, which will be 768 pixels. And we place all our queries into these curly brackets here. So first we need to shift the logo, so we add the logo class in again, then the image tag, then our curly brackets for this style. So we again want to use the margin property, however this time we want 15 pixels from the top, 0 on the right, 0 on the bottom, and only 15 pixels on the left. So if we just save that and refresh, everything looks okay on the large screens, and if we shrink it down, when we hit the small devices, the logo should sit in a better position thanks to our media queries, and there we go. Now we need to adjust our navigation titles on the small devices as well. So we can use the navbar.nav, which houses all our navigation. So we head back to our style sheet and stay within our media queries. We add the navbar-nav class, and add the property of margin. Then we give this a value of 0. Now this will add a 0 margin all the way around the item because we've not declared any more values. So if you just add one value in, that will actually put it around the whole thing. So if we save this and refresh, we can see our navigation is back to the left hand side. However, it's a little too high at the minute, so we just need to shift that down slightly. So we can do this by adding a margin to our toggle section, as this houses our button and is linked to our navigation via the navbar collapse class. So we can go back to our style sheet. Staying within the media queries, we add the navbar-toggle class, and we add the property of margin-top, as this is the only part of the margin that we need to adjust. So we give this a value of 45 pixels. See how that one looks. Then if we save that and refresh, we can actually see our navigation has moved into a better position. Obviously the black background doesn't look great, but we know that that won't be there on the final version, so we can sort that out shortly. But that is our navigation style done for the time being. So next we'll move on to our header section that houses our background image and our carousel. So we'll go on to these into the next lecture.